This is James P. White from 95.7 Cruise FM, The Locker Room. Welcome to the Jedi Jimmy podcast. This is episode number 50. Mandalorian Season 3, episode number 2. The Mines of Mandalore. Such a great episode. So much stuff happened. I was totally blown away. First of all, it starts out on Tatooine, where they go see Peli. She's the one that helped Mando build his ship. And when Grogu saw her, he jumps out of the starship and does all these kind of flips and stuff right to her. It was actually really cool. I'm going to touch a little bit more on that, on how his force powers have increased phenomenally since season 2. Okay, first Mando gets an astromech droid. It's R5-D4. I don't know if you recognize R5-D4, but I definitely did. If you remember from the A New Hope, when the Jawas came to the Lars homestead and they bought this red droid that kind of blew up a little bit, like it, as Luke put it, the motivator is broken. That was R5-D4, because it broke down and then they got R2-D2. That's a big thing that happened, and it's kind of cool. And so that droid is with Peli, and Mando now has it. So they are on Tatooine during Bunta Eve. I don't know if you know what Bunta Eve is, but it's actually it's one of 3 holidays that commemorate the fact that the Hutts won against the parliaments of Morlan during Civil War, and it was named after Bunta Hutt. But Bunta Eve, if you remember from Phantom Menace, that was around the time that they had the pod races in which Anakin was won the pod race, and that was on Bunta Eve. Just a small little tidbit there. So after they get the droid, they go to a Mandalorian city. It's called Sundari, which used to be the capital. When they land on Mandalore, they see the whole place is covered in this green crystal because of the type of bombs that was used in the Night of a Thousand Tears. The fusion bombs, it caused the whole planet's surface to turn into crystal. Now, while they are en route, the Mandalorian explains to Grogu how a Mandalorian needs to understand maps so they know their way around. That way you never get lost. That's actually part of the Mandalorian creed. You gotta learn, you gotta understand maps so that you know your way around so you never get lost. Now, when they land, Mando is attacked by these ogre-looking kind of creatures. They're actually called Alamites. They have really green beady eyes and they're really ugly. So, but he realizes that the planet is actually, the atmosphere is breathable, and he says to that Bo-Katan was right, that Mandalore is not cursed. So Nando is grabbed by this kind of crab-like droid creature thing. It's really weird because it's got this alien creature in a droid body. And Grogu escapes and actually gets in the starfighter with R5-D4, and he takes him to go help find Bo-Katan. When she comes back to help, while he's trying to escape, these creatures attack him, and he's has to jump and do flips, and he's in his little pod thing. But this one comes at him, the Alamite, and Grogu's able to push him with the Force. So a lot has happened with Grogu's Force ability because it has grown so much. But one thing I learned this timeline, So this is about um, between the end of season 2 and the beginning of season 3, about 2 years passed. So actually, Grogu was with Luke for almost 2 years. I thought that was kind of cool because you see all the increases in his force powers. Bo-Katan, she still flies her Cormac class ship. It's a Mandalorian fighter, and they were flown by it was called the Death Watch during the Clone Wars. They were a rebel faction of the Mandalore that was actually part of kind of a civil war. They were actually rebelling against the Duchess at the time, who was actually Bo-Katan's sister, and that was Satine Kryze. And that was during the Clone Wars. Um, and one thing that they did is throughout the episode when dealing with Grogu, both Mando or Din Djarin and Bo-Katan made reference to the fact that they could tell that Grogu is afraid. There's something with that, so pay attention. Now, when Bo-Katan was talking about being on Mandalore, that her sister was actually the Duchess. She was the ruling member of Mandalore at the time, and she was actually murdered by Darth Maul towards the end of the Clone Wars. Now, she also talked about how her and the Mandalorians and the Jedis fought together, and it was during the Clone Wars and probably during the Rebel series, which took place between the end of the Clone Wars and the beginning of A New Hope. So a lot of Jedi did work with the Mandalorians, such as Obi-Wan, Anakin, and during Rebels it was Ahsoka, Ezra Bridger, and Kanan Jarrus from, as I said, from the Rebel series. But the reason why, during the Clone Wars, why Darth Maul actually murdered the Duchess is because she was in love with Obi-Wan and he secretly was in love with her. So actually, Darth Maul murdered her to hurt Obi-Wan. Okay, when Mando was fighting the creatures, when he used the Darksaber, he still hasn't learned how to use the Darksaber properly. He's fighting against the power of the Darksaber, and he ended up getting disarmed when he was captured. But when Bo-Katan went to save Mando, she actually used this whip type device on her gauntlets or her wrist gauntlets to grab the Darksaber, and she used it with a shield on her left hand as well. She was very proficient with the use of the Darksaber, and it wasn't fighting against her. And she was able to kill a lot of the creatures. And if you watch the style and the techniques that she's using, she uses a lot of techniques from Form 1 and Form 2 of lightsaber combat, and especially like with the slicing and the stabbing. The stabbing is more from Form 2, or lunging. Now, at the end of that part, Bo-Katan made Pog soup. I don't know what's actually in Pog soup. I'm guessing probably Pogs. But Mando has never had it before, and she basically was raised on it, living on Mandalore. Now, there's an inscription on the wall, and it says, the mines once housed the great Mythosaur, who was tamed by Mandalore the first leader of the Mandalorians. So Mando goes to the waters of the underneath the mines, and he steps in and he's saying the creed of redemption to try and redeem his sins of taking off his helmet. And he steps into the water and he falls to the bottom. Bo-Katan yet again saves him using her jetpack to go down to the bottom and helps him up. But as they're escaping, they go past this creature and its eye is open and it's got weird horns on it. That is the great mythosaur. And as it turns, you can see the horns and everything. The mythosaur, the head of the mythosaur is actually the symbol for the great and the head of the clans of the Mandalore. So, and you can see the symbol also is on that necklace thing, that pendant that Grogu wears. That's really cool. It's called a skull signet. Now, I have a lot of predictions going forward. This really jump-started my heart, this episode. First of all, Mando will tame the Mythosaur like Mandalore the First did way back in the day. I know for a fact, just because of some of the foreshadowing and things that they're showing, Ahsoka will appear in this season of the show as well. And the pirates will continue chasing Mando, the pirates that attacked him in the first episode. Now, previous predictions that I gave last episode that did happen was Mando would find the Mythos or would find Mandalore. That's one. That he would find the living waters and start the ritual in the water under the mines. That happened. And I kind of thought that they were going to introduce the Mythosaur, and we got to see the sucker. So excited. Really love this episode. I love to see where this is going forward. I don't know what else to say. I do need to thank all my sponsors. First of all, the Crier Media Network, and of course my buddy Army Chris, Fire for Effect Productions, who helped me set up all this stuff. I look forward to seeing you next time with episode number 3 of The Mandalorian. May the Force be with you, always.